Admiral Stor stood before the assembled fleet commanders, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the dim light of the briefing chamber. 3 decades of military service had earned him the right to lead the largest invasion force the collective had ever assembled. Yet, as he gazed upon the eager faces of his subordinates, he felt only dread. "You're about to enter human space," he began, his voice resonating through the chamber. "Many of you believe this will be a simple conquest. After all, these humans lack quantum drives, haven't mastered dark energy manipulation, and still rely on primitive chemical rockets for much of their space travel." He paused, watching several officers nod in agreement. "That assumption has led to the destruction of 17 previous fleets." The chamber fell silent. Even the youngest officers knew the numbers. Nearly 40,000 ships lost. Millions of crew members vanished without a trace. Yet somehow, humanity remained officially classified as a pre-spacefaring civilization. 3 cycles ago, the 7th Expeditionary Force entered human territory with technology far superior to anything Earth possessed. They had quantum-encrypted communications, phase-shift stealth systems, and weapons that could crack planets. Do you know what happened to them? A junior commander raised her appendage. "The official records state they were lost to a spatial anomaly, Admiral." Stor's outer membrane rippled with dark amusement. "The official records are wrong. I was there, commanding a scout ship on the edge of the formation. The humans didn't just defeat them. They turned every single one of our technological advantages into a weapon against us." He activated the holographic display, showing footage from that ill-fated mission. "Watch closely. This is what happened when we thought we had them cornered." The recording showed Earth ships, crewed by collective standards, seemingly trapped between the fleet's pincer movement. But then something impossible happened. The human vessels began broadcasting on the quantum-encrypted channels, using the fleet's own communications protocols. Ships started receiving conflicting orders, their AI systems compromised by signals that shouldn't have even been detectable to human technology. They hadn't developed quantum encryption, Stor explained, but they had figured out how to hijack our quantum-encrypted channels using what they called side-channel attacks. Technology they couldn't possibly understand, they still managed to exploit. The footage continued, showing collective ships firing on their own allies, their targeting systems corrupted by human cyber warfare. The supposedly impenetrable phase-shift stealth systems became beacons, somehow reflecting human scanning pulses in ways that revealed every cloaked vessel's position. "The humans have a saying," the Admiral continued. "Anything sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from a target. They don't try to match our technology level. Instead, they find ways to turn it against us. Every advantage we think we have becomes a vulnerability in their hands." He switched off the recording and faced his commanders directly. "You're not entering human space to conquer it. Your mission is to survive long enough to understand them. Every fleet that's disappeared has taught us one thing. We don't comprehend how humans think, how they fight, or what they're truly capable of." A senior commander spoke up, her voice tinged with confusion. "But Admiral, our latest intelligence shows they're still using internal combustion engines on their planetary surface. Their space force lacks artificial gravity. They haven't even colonized their own solar system properly." "And yet," Stor countered, "they've managed to defeat every advanced civilization that's tried to invade them. Think about that. While we were mastering faster-than-light travel, they were mastering something far more dangerous, the art of turning an enemy's strength into a weakness." He brought up another display, showing the fleet's formation plans. "You will maintain maximum distance from Earth at all times. You will not approach their solar system directly. Most importantly, you will not underestimate them. The moment you think you have the humans figured out is the moment you've already lost." The Admiral's exoskeleton darkened, a sign of deadly seriousness in his species. "Remember this above all else. Humans don't fight the way we do. They don't follow the rules of warfare as we understand them. Where we see limitations, they see opportunities. Where we see unbreakable laws of physics, they see guidelines to be bent. As the briefing concluded, Stor looked at each of his commanders in turn. Half of you think I'm exaggerating the threat. The other half think I'm being paranoid. Both groups are wrong. I'm not telling you all this to frighten you. I'm telling you because I want at least some of you to survive long enough to understand what we're truly dealing with. The commanders filed out of the briefing room, leaving Admiral Stor alone with his memories of watching an entire fleet disappear into the darkness of space, defeated not by superior technology, but by the endless ingenuity of a species that refused to play by anyone else's rules. The fleet's first encounter with humanity came not with a bang, but with a distress signal. 3 weeks into their cautious probe of the outer solar system, long-range sensors detected a primitive human vessel drifting near the Kuiper Belt. Its power systems were failing, life support was minimal, and a single human life sign pulsed weakly aboard. Commander Vexera, despite Admiral Stor's warnings, saw an opportunity. "This is perfect," she transmitted to the fleet command. "We can study their technology up close and even acquire a live specimen for analysis." The Admiral's response was immediate and harsh. "Negative. Maintain distance and continue observation only." But Vexera had already committed her ship to an intercept course. "With respect, Admiral, this is exactly the kind of intelligence gathering we need. One obsolete human cargo ship poses no threat to a collective warship." The human vessel grew larger on their viewing screens, a crude cylinder of metal and ceramic, its hull scarred by micro-meteor impacts. Solar panels hung limply from its sides, and occasional bursts of vented gas showed its failing stabilization systems. "Final warning, Commander," the Admiral's voice carried an edge of genuine fear. "Break off your approach immediately." Vexera ignored the command. Her ship's tractor beam locked onto the human vessel, drawing it toward their cargo bay. "Beginning retrieval operations. The human's life signs are stable but weak. We should be able to." Her transmission cut off mid-sentence. Admiral Stor watched in horror as events unfolded exactly as he'd feared. The moment the human ship entered the cargo bay, everything changed. The failing solar panels suddenly snapped to attention, revealing themselves as massive signal receivers. The vented gas turned out to be a specially engineered nanite cloud that had now spread throughout Vexera's ship. The human vessel's hull split open like a blooming flower, revealing not a dying crew member, but a forest of antennas and transmission equipment. Before anyone could react, it had already begun broadcasting on every frequency the collective used, and some they didn't even know existed. "This is why we can't beat them," Stor transmitted to his remaining commanders. "Watch and learn." Vexera's ship systems began acting erratically. Weapons powered up and down randomly. Shield harmonics fluctuated. The quantum encryption protocols that were supposed to be unbreakable started spewing garbage data across the fleet's network. "But how?" one of the junior commanders asked. "They shouldn't even be able to interface with our technology." "They don't need to," Stor replied grimly. "They just need to understand the principles behind it. Humans excel at finding weak points in systems they barely comprehend." The situation deteriorated rapidly. The nanite cloud had mapped Vexera's entire ship in minutes, identifying every system and vulnerability. The human vessel wasn't trying to hack their computers. It was physically altering their hardware at the molecular level. Vexera's desperate transmissions became increasingly garbled. "Can't. Controls not responding. Something in the systems. Changing configuration. Need immediate." Then silence. The entire fleet watched as Vexera's ship, one of the most advanced vessels in the collective's armada, began to move under its own power, or rather, under human control. Its weapons turned toward the fleet, forcing them to scatter. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that they could still detect the single human life sign aboard, steady and strong now, no longer appearing weak. It had never been in distress. It had been waiting. "Fall back," Admiral Stor ordered. "Maximum FTL speed." Get clear of this system now. But Commander Vexera, someone protested, is teaching us our first real lesson about humans. The Admiral cut in. They don't think like us. Where we see a damaged ship, they see bait. Where we see a dying creature, they see an opportunity. Every assumption we make about them is a weapon they can use against us. As the fleet retreated, they received one final transmission from Vexera's ship. It wasn't in any collective language. It was in plain human English, broadcast in the clear. Thanks for the new ship. We've been wanting to study your tech up close. Don't worry about Commander Vexera. She'll be returned safely once we're done. Consider this a friendly warning. Next time, send diplomats, not warships. The message ended with something that chilled even the Admiral's crystalline blood: human laughter. Set course for the outer system, Stor commanded. And let this be a lesson to all of you. We thought we were studying them, but they were studying us. We thought we had superior technology, but they turned it against us in ways we didn't even think possible. And most importantly, he paused, watching Vexera's captured ship disappear into the darkness of space. We thought we were the hunters, but we were always the prey. The loss of Commander Vexera's ship had shaken the fleet's confidence, but Admiral Stor knew worse was coming. As they regrouped at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, their long-range sensors detected nothing unusual, and that was precisely what worried him. "Status report," he commanded, his crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. "All clear, Admiral," his sensor officer responded. "No human vessels within detection range. No artificial signals detected." "No, that's what they want us to think," Stor interrupted. "Execute Protocol Sigma 9. Full spectrum analysis, including all the frequencies we normally consider useless." The sensor officer complied, albeit with visible skepticism. At first, the results showed nothing new, just the usual background radiation of space. Then, gradually, patterns began to emerge. "Admiral," the officer's voice trembled slightly, "you need to see this." The main display lit up with what looked like random noise, but as the computer began correlating data points, a chilling picture emerged. Hidden in what they had dismissed as natural phenomena were thousands of tiny signatures. Reflected sunlight off what appeared to be space debris, slight gravitational disturbances that seemed natural, radio waves that mimicked stellar background radiation. "They're everywhere," Stor whispered. "Show me a three-dimensional plot." The display shifted, and suddenly the fleet could see what they had been missing. Those tiny signatures formed a perfect sphere around them. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of small objects, most no bigger than a human escape pod, had been tracking their every move. "But our stealth systems," one of the commanders protested. "They couldn't possibly." "They didn't need to defeat our stealth systems," Stor explained. "They just needed to watch how space itself behaved around us. Every ship, no matter how well cloaked, affects its environment in some way. The humans weren't looking for our ships. They were looking for the holes we made in the natural background of space." A junior officer spoke up. "Admiral, we're detecting energy signatures from these objects now. They're changing." The small objects began moving, their seemingly random positions revealing themselves as a carefully choreographed dance. They weren't just observation posts. They were nodes in a vast network, sharing data, building a complete picture of the fleet's capabilities. "They've been watching us since we entered the system," Stor realized. "Every maneuver we made, every formation we took, every time we used our advanced technology. They were studying us, learning our patterns, understanding our capabilities." As if to confirm his words, the fleet's quantum communications suddenly came alive with human transmissions. But these weren't like the crude radio waves humans were known to use. These signals mimicked collective protocols perfectly, carrying with them detailed technical readouts of every ship in the fleet. "How?" the sensor officer demanded. "How could they have gathered so much data without us noticing?" "Because we were looking for what we expected to find," Stor replied. We were looking for their equivalent of our technology. Instead, they used simple physics in ways we never considered. Those debris fields we ignored, passive sensor arrays, the gravitational anomalies we attributed to natural phenomena, micro black hole detectors. They turned the entire solar system into one massive surveillance network, and we flew right into it. Another officer spoke up, panic evident in their voice. "Admiral, we're detecting power spikes from the observation network." They're reconfiguring. The small objects began moving again, but this time they weren't just observing. Each one released what appeared to be a cloud of metallic dust. As the dust spread, it began to interact with the fleet's shield harmonics, creating interference patterns that made their supposedly impenetrable defenses visible to the naked eye. They're not just tracking us, Stor realized. They're marking us, making us visible to whatever's coming next. As if on cue, the fleet's long-range sensors detected new contacts emerging from behind every major celestial body in range. Ships that had been there all along, hidden not by advanced technology, but by the simple expedient of placing themselves in sensor shadows and gravitational blind spots. "The Ghost Fleet," Stor murmured. "All this time, we thought we were the ones conducting reconnaissance, but they were the ones testing us, probing our responses, learning our weaknesses." And now, the human ships began moving with perfect coordination, each one already knowing its target, already understanding the vulnerabilities of each collective vessel. They had turned their entire solar system into an elaborate trap, and the collective fleet had waltzed right into it. "All ships, emergency jump protocols," Stor commanded. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late. The humans had been preparing this moment for weeks, and they had learned everything they needed to know about their adversaries. The lesson was clear. While the collective had been proud of their ability to hide their presence, the humans had mastered the art of hiding in plain sight. As the human ghost fleet closed in, Admiral Stor expected an immediate attack. Instead, something far more unsettling occurred. The humans began broadcasting on all frequencies, but not with threats or demands. They were transmitting personal messages to individual crew members throughout the collective fleet. "How do they know our names?" the communications officer asked, her crystalline form clouding with anxiety. "How do they know about our families?" Stor's outer membrane darkened as he realized what was happening. "They've been reading our personal, quantum-encrypted communications, all those messages home, all those private conversations. They weren't just gathering tactical data. They were building psychological profiles of every crew member." The broadcasts continued, each one perfectly tailored to its recipient. Some crew members received messages that appeared to be from their home worlds, reporting catastrophes that demanded their immediate return. Others received technical data that contradicted their sensors, creating doubt about their own system's reliability. Still others received transmissions that seemed to reveal secret orders and hidden agendas within the collective's command structure. "Shut down all communications," Stor ordered, but the damage was already done. The seeds of doubt had been planted. A tactical officer spoke up, his voice uncertain. "Admiral, I'm detecting anomalies in our weapon systems. The targeting computers are showing conflicting data. Don't you see what they're doing?" Stor addressed his crew. "They're not trying to destroy us. They're making us destroy ourselves. Every piece of technology we rely on, every protocol we trust, every certainty we cling to, they're turning it all into a weapon against us." The human broadcasts shifted strategy. Now they began transmitting what appeared to be internal collective communications, revealing supposed conspiracies and hidden motivations. Some messages suggested that certain ships were actually under human control. Others implied that the entire mission was based on falsified intelligence. "They're inside our heads," a senior commander admitted. "Every countermeasure we take, every defensive protocol we initiate, it all just gives them more weapons to use against us." The psychological assault continued. The humans began broadcasting detailed analyses of collective military doctrine, pointing out flaws and contradictions that many crew members had privately questioned but never voiced. They revealed classified incidents from previous failed invasions, showing how the collective had covered up its defeats and lied to its own people. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving transmissions from Commander Vexor's captured ship." The message that played through the command center was devastating in its simplicity. It was Vexor's voice, calm and collected, explaining in detail how the humans had helped her understand the fundamental flaws in collective technology. She described how their reliance on quantum encryption had made them vulnerable, how their advanced AI systems had blind spots that primitive human computing could exploit. "The humans didn't torture me or coerce me," Vexor's message concluded. "They just showed me the truth. Our technology isn't superior, it's just different. And in making it so complex, so advanced, we've created vulnerabilities that humans can exploit with the simplest of tools." Throughout the fleet, crew members began questioning their orders. Some ships reported system failures that didn't actually exist. Others began seeing phantom targets on their sensors. The humans had turned the fleet's own fears and doubts into weapons more effective than any physical attack. They'd weaponized truth itself, Stor realized. Every secret we kept, every weakness we denied, every flaw we ignored, they're using it all against us. A junior officer approached the admiral, her crystalline form clouded with confusion. "Sir, how do we fight an enemy that turns our own minds against us?" Stor's response was interrupted by a new transmission. This one was different. A simple text message displayed on every screen in the fleet. "Your mission was doomed before it began. Not because we're stronger or more advanced, but because you came here believing your technology made you superior. You never stopped to consider that we might have spent centuries learning to turn an enemy's strength into their greatest weakness. You don't need advanced technology to win a war. You just need to understand how your enemy thinks and make them doubt everything they believe." As the message faded, the admiral watched his mighty fleet begin to unravel, not from physical attacks, but from the slow poison of doubt and fear. The humans had proven that the most devastating weapons weren't the ones that destroyed ships. They were the ones that destroyed certainty. Admiral Stor stood on his command deck, watching as his once mighty fleet crumbled from within, not from human weapons, but from the devastating realization that every assumption they'd made about humanity had been wrong. The final lesson was about to begin. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human vessels are moving into attack positions, but they're not activating their weapons." "They don't need to," Stor replied. "Watch." The human ships began a complex dance through space, each movement precisely calculated. They weren't trying to threaten the collective fleet, they were demonstrating something. As they maneuvered, their primitive chemical engines left trails of charged particles in space, creating patterns that interfered with the collective's quantum sensors in ways that should have been impossible. "They're showing us how they did it," Stor realized. "How they've been defeating advanced species for centuries. It was never about matching our technology. It was about understanding it well enough to turn it against us." The demonstration continued. Human ships deliberately positioned themselves in ways that created cascading failures in the fleet's targeting systems. They used simple radio waves, modulated in specific patterns, to create phantom readings in quantum scanners. They showed how their network of simple observation posts had mapped every vulnerability in the collective's supposedly impenetrable defenses. "Admiral," the science officer called out, "we're receiving data packets from the humans. They're instruction manuals. They're showing us exactly how they defeated each of our systems." Stor's crystalline form pulsed with understanding. "This is their true victory, not just defeating us, but showing us why we were always going to lose. The ultimate psychological weapon. Complete transparency." The data packets continued streaming in. Detailed analyses of how human scientists had studied seemingly random sensor ghosts to decode collective stealth systems. explanations of how they used basic orbital mechanics to hide entire fleets in plain sight, demonstrations of how they'd turned quantum encryption against itself. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth itself. Text only." The message appeared on the main screen. "You came here expecting to find primitives who hadn't mastered your level of technology. Instead, you found something far more dangerous, a species that had mastered the art of understanding how things truly work. We don't need quantum computers because we learned to use simple binary systems in ways you never imagined. We don't need faster-than-light communications because we learned to make light itself carry our messages in ways your sensors can't detect. Every advanced race that came before you made the same mistake. They thought technology alone made them superior. They never understood that true advancement isn't about having the most complex solutions. It's about finding the elegant simplicity that underlies all complexity. This is your final lesson. We could destroy your fleet right now. Instead, we're choosing to educate you. Return home. Tell your people what you've learned here. And remember, the next time you encounter a primitive species, ask yourself this: are they really less advanced than you, or have they simply found a better way? As the message faded, the human ships began to withdraw, leaving the collective fleet intact but fundamentally changed. They had come seeking to conquer what they thought was an inferior species. They were leaving with the humbling knowledge that they had never understood what true advancement meant. "Plot a course for home," Admiral Stor commanded, "and prepare a full report for the Collective Council. They need to understand what we've learned here." "What should we tell them, sir?" his executive officer asked. "The truth," Stor replied. "That we encountered a species that showed us the ultimate truth about advancement. It's not the complexity of your technology that matters, but the wisdom to understand how little you truly know. The humans didn't just defeat us. They gave us a gift. They showed us that true power doesn't come from having the most advanced technology. It comes from understanding the fundamental principles so well that even the simplest tools become powerful weapons in your hands." As the fleet began its long journey home, Admiral Stor reflected on all they had learned. The humans had turned their entire civilization into a lesson about the danger of assumptions and the power of understanding. They hadn't just preserved their independence. They had changed how an entire alien civilization would think about advancement and superiority. The final human transmission followed them into deep space. Remember, the most dangerous species in the universe isn't the one with the most advanced technology. It's the one that understands technology so well they don't need the advanced version to defeat it.